Make them feel welcome. And Miss Megan, whenever you're ready, you may begin.
Many restaurants today are now either requiring you or expecting you to tip your waiters after eating at their restaurant. The topic that I have chosen for this speech is why tipping should be abolished in restaurants. I will be giving you some background information on tipping, showing you why many people believe tipping should be abolished, some positive notes on tipping, and how you can take action. Tipping was started in Europe and during the Civil War times, as Paul Roger wrote in his article in the New York Times. It spread through Europe and was also known as an artistic practice. After the Civil War had ended, the Americans decided to bring home the idea of tipping back. The problem was with this is the Americans didn't use it the way Europeans used it. They more used it as flattering and flavor. Tipping can sometimes be used in the wrong way. The reason why tipping can be used in the wrong way is some people mix up the idea of tipping as it should be for the quality or of the server's service and not how fast their food gets done or how well it's prepared, because that is not their job of how fast their food is being brought to them. That is the cook's responsibility. Sometimes they can also be judged on the tipping by their gender, race, or age, such as a female waiter might be tipped differently than a male waiter, or an African American waiter can also be tipped differently than, say, a white waiter. As Jay Porter, a restaurateur an owner of a restaurant that also has the no tipping policy, he said that tipping can also become a hassle because usually his employees started complaining about how they weren't being tipped fairly, and they were also all being paid below minimum wage. Tipping should be abolished from restaurants, and employees should be paid minimum wage. Usually, restaurants that have the tipping, they usually are being paid below minimum wage. Jay Porter stated, "Here I was winging it as an owner, running into these frustrations which all boiled down to money. I felt like there had to be a better way." He ran into an issue where all his employees were complaining about how they weren't being tipped fairly, as I stated earlier, and how they were being paid below minimum wage. He then brought up the idea of abolishing tips. As I said earlier, not everyone has been receiving tips fairly, but this is not always the case. Porter had also said, "No other profession works like this, and I don't see why the restaurant business should either." As a former employee at Creamy Freeze, employees are also being paid below minimum wage and are also being paid in tips. Ellie Broadcourse, a Creamy Freeze employee, had said, "A lot of Creamy customers have told me that they do not tip because we make minimum wage, and when I tell them we don't, they are very surprised." The problem with this is customers do not understand that we are not being paid, the restaurant Creamy Freeze is not being paid minimum wage, so they don't usually tip because they don't really see the reason why they should be. And also, sometimes at Creamy Freeze, there can be days where we're really slow and the business does not make as many tips as, say, the first shift. So the first shift doesn't make as many tips as the second shift, which can also create problems of how they're being paid. Because the first shift could also be working really hard, and the second shift may not, and they may be receiving more money, which can run into problems. Not all things about tipping are bad. There can be positive sides too. Like I said, tipping is a way of act of kindness. The method of tipping is not to tip on how the food or the quality of the food is being given to you. It's how the person who is giving you your food is showing their kindness and helping you in many ways. And sometimes that is the way it goes in many restaurants. But this is not always the case. As I said earlier, tipping is sometimes mandatory for restaurants. And the waiters who are being tipped are also being tipped unfairly. And as you see, I gave you all a handout, and I showed you the difference between what tippers can control and what servers can control and what servers cannot control. action you can take than just having an understanding of why tipping is not the best way to go in restaurants. There are several ways to help. You can always talk to a legislative representative about the problem and how you want it to be changed, or you can also spread the idea of how tipping should go and why tipping is also bad for restaurateurs and the waiters and how unfair it is. As I said, many restaurants today are now either requiring you or expecting you to tip your waiters after eating at their restaurant. The topic is, I will restate my topic, which is why tipping should be abolished in restaurants. Now that I've given you more information on tipping, you can use the knowledge of your own and take action.
Great, thank you very much. Let's give her a round of applause. Thank you, Megan. Are you doing okay, Stana? Would you prefer to sit? Not at all. That's fine. If you'd like to sit, and then if you'd like to go ahead and issue or take questions, I would be fine with that.
Yeah, you're right.
Do you think that if I go to a restaurant and the server does a really good job, I should be able to give them a tip if they went beyond what a normal server would do?
Yeah, like I said, there's also positive sides to tipping. You can also, the servers also they work really hard on showing that they do care, but some people don't always tip the way they should. But if you do, then you can. Yes, Corbin.
How much should you tip?
How much should you tip?
Yeah.
I don't really think. I think the mandatory tipping percentage is 10%, 15% of your bill, I think. But you can tip, I guess, as much. Just don't obviously tip them $100, but just be smart. Maybe $2 or $5, just depending how well their service was. Matt.
You mentioned earlier how before it was brought to America, sometimes tipping was used in flavor. How?
In favor.
Oh, favor.
Yeah, favor. Sorry.
Sorry.
I said favor. Yeah. Julia.
When tipping started in Europe, what was the intended reason for it?
It was some kind of practice. I honestly do not know. I had it written down, but I kind of just forgot.
What are some ways that we can take action now to change this?
You can talk to your legislative representative, like I said, and just tell them how you feel about tipping and how you feel about how unfair it is. Oh yes, right.
Do you think not tipping will be resulted in the workers are not as motivated to work as hard as they should?
Sorry, what did you say?
So it's not, if not
so
tipping.
So on your handout you said servers can control being polite and helpful and entertaining your customers.
Mm-hmm.
But if you're not tipping, will it be resulted in they are not trying as hard to entertain customers or be polite and helpful?
If they're not, I feel like they should. If they're not really doing their job, which I think that their job is to be very helpful, and if they go above and beyond, then they should be tipped. And if they're not, then they probably shouldn't be working there, and maybe their manager should talk to them, or the customers, if they're having problems with their waiter and they're being treated poorly, they could also talk to their manager about that one waiter that took their table.
I'm going to call this questioning to an end, so let's go ahead and give Megan a round of applause. Thank you.